All right, so kind of non-traditional signing days nowadays in the way that they're set up. So this really is kind of just a recap. Have not spoke to you guys in a long time, and at the end open up questions about things that have happened over the last couple months. But as you look at the class, when you combine the high school class and portal class, which I think kind of the way you got to look at it now, almost if you were in the NFL and you took the draft class and the free agency, if they were the same time of year, and you looked at them together, I feel like that's kind of the way to look at it now as you remake your rosters each year. So it's kind of crazy to think about 3 new quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 10 wide receivers, 9 offensive line, 2 tight ends, 6 defensive line, 2 linebackers, 3 defensive backs, and 3 specialists. So, and that's not obviously counting the numbers of players that were here that were potentially leaving and re-signed here, which now is obviously a part of it too. So that's a lot of numbers. And I do think that our staff did a really good job in a very challenging situation. Now, luckily we were recruiting to LSU and all the great things with that made us able to put together this class, but that was a challenging time. It's been discussed before, the calendar is what it is, and to try and put together a staff at the same time of trying to keep the current players immediately before the portal opened, as they were preparing for a bowl game with the previous staff, and then just kind of uncharted waters by our staff, a number of our staff, offensively going back and forth between the playoff run at the last place and then trying to put together this group here. So I do get really excited when I think about, these are a lot of really good players, a lot of really talented players coming together and whatever rankings, number 1 portal class and that stuff. To be able to do that with all those challenges, to me, even excites me even more as you look to the future of LSU and what we'll be able to do as we're here for a full year. And we've been able to recruit the high school kids and especially in-state kids to have the relationships there to make the high school class even better than what it was. But then as you look at the portal, to have our own players, and really over the time since the portal's come about, basically where we've been, for the most part, the players that we want to stay when the portal opens stays where we are on our roster. So that really excites me because I think we were able to do all this with a really good staff. Billy, general manager, did a great job in transition here, including a number of people in the building, especially in the recruiting department, that were able to help us in the transition and do a great job. To be able to now look into next year and have all that set, what everybody's roles are, and what they're supposed to do in that, really excites me. So where that puts us now is that we have a really talented roster. Does that mean we're going to win games? Not necessarily. Does that mean they're going to be a great team? No. We have a lot of work to do now. We had a team meeting this morning right here a few hours ago and talked a lot about that. So you all came together and came from all these different places, but now you've got to put all that aside and you've got to be able to work for the betterment of the program and the team and to put all that together. And that'll be a ton of work for a long time now in this offseason. Defensively, obviously keeping mostly the defensive staff allows us schematically over there, not much change, but offensively we have all the new players and a new system to put in here. So excited about the work ahead. One of the good things, obviously, about all of this change is that you do have a lot of really talented players, so that is a big challenge to be able to say, can we put them all together so they play really well? And, we've been able to do that really the last couple of years at the previous place of a ton of turnover, especially last year. And this time a year ago, having a much different roster and turnover and all kinds of players go to the NFL and I think 2 returning starters, and we're able to do what we did. So this is a great challenge. Glad that we're here doing it. The whole town was amazing in recruiting to help bringing all these kids in and the hospitality that they showed them at the hotels, restaurants, on campus was unbelievable, and they could feel it. There were all kinds of meetings at the end of the official visits when you talk through, okay, what did you think about your experience, parents, the players, and they said, really, it was amazing. The LSU experience and the Baton Rouge experience and how they felt coming here to visit was a huge part. I know a lot gets played about NIL and those things, but a ton of them talking about a huge part of why they came here is the way that they felt on their trip here to the city of Baton Rouge and to LSU, how they treated them.
Hey Lane, Wilson Alexander from The Advocate. Well, you talked about in your introductory press conference back in December that the financial plan here was different in those other offers that you had. What was it about it that was different, and how did that influence what y'all were able to now do with this roster?
Yeah, great question. I'm not going, nor will I ever really get into the details exactly, obviously, of the resources and the breakdown and how we use them. But just felt in the plan that there was a really good plan here in place and an alignment from the top down about how that would, how the resources were here, and then the plan of how that could be structured within those contracts in order to sign the players, and thought that there was a really good plan in place of how to do that. So number one, the resources to do it, which is important, like I referred to, but then a plan of how do you use the resources, which is not our expertise contractually, and NIL contractually with third parties. And then to combine that, which I think what is our specialty is the evaluation of the players, because again, you can have money, just like you see in any sports, and salary caps, and do you evaluate the guys really well? Do you not just get the top end guys? Do you get the next tier, and do you get them for really good deals? By the way that you evaluate them, by the way that your scouting department evaluates and your coaches, and I think that's our specialty. So putting those two things combined, I think puts us where we are.
Hey Lane, Garland Gill and Fox 8 in New Orleans. A few weeks back, right before the portal was closing, you talked to the Baton Rouge business community. You said this could be the greatest transfer portal class ever. We still got some work to do. And right after that, you got Prince Well and you got Jordan. You've been around this for a little while at the transfer portal. You think you've amassed the greatest class of transfer portal era?
Well, I think talent-wise, probably is. Now a lot of that too is also the numbers. The volume helps that when I make that statement. Which I think over time in general volume's gone up because as the system has happened and has evolved, all right, it's really created a system that makes players go in. And like I said in the beginning when it was first created, at least now there's only one window. You basically had created a system that was 2 times a year as a player, so I don't blame them. And I said eventually there'll be a lot more of them that 2 times a year you can opt into free agency. So no matter how you played, no matter what your contract structure is, imagine in professional sports, let's just take the NFL, that there's 2 windows a year that you can opt into free agency to either come back and get paid more or to go somewhere else and create a more competitive market for you. So I think that created a lot of these numbers being higher to where when I say, okay, probably would be the best ever on paper, part of that is the numbers and the volume too of it. And we had a lot to replace, by coming in, and part of that is some players' decisions to move on, maybe because they felt a certain way of the previous staff versus the direction we were going, and part of that is our decisions too. And so I would like to say I'd never come up and say anything about the last staff and how they do things, because it doesn't mean our way is better or worse. It's just different, and every people's different. So in those evaluations, usually come in and make a lot of changes. And especially if the program made a change, and fired a staff because they didn't like the direction of the football program, which is what happened. So I know at first there was a lot of skepticism about so many players going in the portal, but I just looked at it and it was like, okay, what's my answer to you as the fans and media too if we just kept the same players? I mean, we are good coaches, I think, but we also, don't have magic dust too, so we changed a lot because there needed to be changes. Same within the building. Just means it was done a different way. And I just think that's part of being a head coach, an experienced head coach, that you come in and you look at things and you make really hard decisions, roster-wise, building-wise, that are in the best interest of the program. And one of those is the employees in the building, and one of those is the players.
Hey, Lane, Glenn West, 24/7 Sports. A couple pieces here to this question, but just, you guys were very aggressive in going out and getting Sam Levitt to be the quarterback here. Just what spoke to you about his game and what you like about his game? Maybe give us a little bit of an update on kind of his injury timeline and when you can maybe expect to get him back on the field. And then just the opportunity that maybe that sets up for guys like Hassan and Landon Clark you also brought in this spring.
Yeah, I think maybe the quarterback room, as any position, if not the most, as you looked at it, a lot of change had to happen there, and there weren't many numbers at all. I think maybe there was one when we got here. And so, but really pleased about what we were able to do there, because again, like I talked about, I think a huge key is, how do you put together the whole roster in this world that's in outlet? There's a salary involved. And so I think one of the mistakes that's been made over time is people focus so top heavy that they go get these top players, but then they don't really do a good job of necessarily having really good evaluations of the 2s and the 3s that make your program better by how you practice, but also eventually play at times. I think the previous place you're at, there's a really good quarterback story that wasn't even there this time a year ago, and then our evaluation process of always grinding, always trying to find players, find a quarterback that doesn't come until the summer in the second window, and that story is what it is. So that's why, as you look at this, I thought this was really critical what we did here, the quarterback position. Sam will be able to throw some and participate in 7-on-7 stuff in the spring, probably not the team stuff. And so I think it was, regardless, we would have done what we did, but it's also imperative to get quarterbacks, because that's going to be a lot of how your spring ball goes, which is your first time of your team feeling an offense. And our offense is very much pushed and driven by the quarterback because of the tempo piece of it. So the other 2 guys, very talented players, and I think that's really, maybe as anywhere, the thing I'm most proud of from our GM to our personnel to our coaches department, of being able to do that at the quarterback position, of 3 guys that I think are really talented, different styles of players, and so for them, and it says a lot about them to come to the same place. But nowadays, a lot of guys don't want to do that. They want to go to where, okay, I'm guaranteed I'm going to start. And so I think it says a lot about their competitiveness.
Hey, Coach. Jacques Doucet, WAFB TV here in Baton Rouge. You've talked a little bit about it, but have you ever faced a spring or something like this before? Like you said, 60 new players, 13 new coaches, the timing of the offense. How important will spring football be to you in getting this thing going?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but a year ago we did something similar and lost a lot of players to the draft and the quarterback, and so I think this new era has kind of made us do this a little bit more than normal. But I think it's exciting. I think it's challenging, which I talk a lot about, as I've gotten older, and how important it is to get out of comfort zones in life and to challenge yourself versus sometimes, things are just set and this is an easier way to do it, and you just go, you go an easy route. This was not an easy route, making this choice and this decision to come here, and uncomfortable in some ways. And I really like that, because I think it forces me to grow, forces our staff that could have just stayed where they were and been very comfortable. And so I get excited about that. Just like the team meeting today and coming in here and not really knowing the people like we did, and first time for them interacting and choosing their 2-on-2 basketball team and stuff like this. It's neat to redo things like that over after 6 years of what I think was a really cool and neat run.
Yeah, Ron Higgins, Shreveport Bossier Journal. you signed more people in this transfer class than you ever did at Ole Miss. Is that by design, or is it because you have more resources? You can go after more people. You have more money to work with.
Well, I think the number thing was a lot because you have the coaching change. And I think as you study around the country, but the SEC, there was huge numbers where a coaching change happened because kids kind of want to go in the portal. And the more reasons you can give them to go in, and a coaching change is a really big one, kids want to go in. Gets attention, puts them in an open market. So, yeah, the resources, I know definitely helped. I wouldn't say that necessarily because the number of them, but the ability to, and it's not just resources when you talk about the financial resources, it's to me the resources of, they come on the visit and they walk in to Tiger Stadium and it's LSU and they see all the great players that have played here before and they see the magnitude of the place and I know I said it, now it's like floating around here, but as they come to visit, they say the same thing. Like a lot of times in that Sunday meeting, that final meeting that you have with them, what'd you like? They're like, it's just different. It's a different feeling when you come here, and that's not the financial piece. It's just LSU, and they go down and they walk through the cafeteria here and the student athletes, and you feel like you're in an Olympic training site because you just look at it. Here's the best baseball players in the world, and the best women's basketball players, and it's just a feeling that they got around here, and I don't know if that's really considered resources, but that's a tremendous value into these guys deciding to come here. And I think it kind of, someone asked the other day about, you choosing the right players to come into your culture. I think when they come to visit us, they feel what our culture is, and they feel how demanding that we are on them. And so I think they choose us. And so I think when you put us in the way that we coach and think and talk to them, which is a little bit different. When you put us at LSU, now the ones that, like these quarterbacks that are choosing to come here, I know they're really competitive, or else they don't come because I got to go do it at LSU, and I got to go do it where I'm not going to be guaranteed anything. I'm going to come in, I'm going to sit in that team room, and it doesn't matter where I'm from, it doesn't matter how many stars I have, and it doesn't matter what my salary is. The best players are going to play, and they know that. So it's kind of long-winded, but I think that all filters into the resources and the combination of resources, our staff, and then LSU.
Coach, Mike Scarborough with Tiger Bait. Can you talk about Billy Glascock, the job he does for you, how vital he is to you, and also how are you received on all your visits to Louisiana high schools in the last few weeks?
Yeah, Billy does a tremendous job. I think nowadays, it's not just nowadays, but for a number of years now, and I think that I would like to think that people would say I was on this before other people were, that the value of a GM and how important it is, and it's been for a number of years, but especially as these contracts came into place. But I think, people want to ask a question about playoffs, maybe that's going to come and everything, and I always point to that. Really, if you want the answers of how to do something in college, usually just look to the NFL. They've been doing it a long time, and they do it as well as you could possibly do it in all areas. So I think when you talk about general manager, it's the same thing. Why would you not have a general manager that helps run the entire building, okay, with you? And if you look at, I think the best runs in the NFL over time is it's head coaches and general managers that work together. They're not placed together. They work together, okay, and they're on the same page. And Billy and I now, after being together a few years, it's worked extremely well. And I know that I can go get on a plane, your second question, to go to schools and go recruit, and I know everything's going to be handled extremely well in this building. And usually the decisions are going to be made exactly how I would think to make them, of things we've discussed, or he calls and we talk about it. So I think it's a tricky dynamic, like it always has been in professional sports, of the right makeup with the and power dynamic of the general manager and the head coach. And for us to just be together, be on the same page, and be able to have put together now rosters the way that we did, and now come here and turn this the way that we did, at least on paper so far, is awesome. So I think he's as good as they come in the entire country. The high schools here, it's been great. going to them and receiving the feedback. And I've always enjoyed overtime coming here and recruit, and just the people. I used to always say it's like they love football, and everybody says they love football, but the high school coaches here and the people in the school, like, they love football. They love coaching football. They love coaching the kids. They genuinely care about the kids, something that's kind of gotten lost a little bit. And so it's awesome. And I'd love to sign a lot of Louisiana kids. We had a long meeting this week about that and about finding not the guys that are just on these lists that people put out and all these things as with all the stars, but to go find, because I know over time that there's always been great players here that aren't highly recruited. And a lot of that's because they're really good players, but it's because of their makeup and how they're coached and the way they want to work, and they just want to get better, and they just want to go work out as long as they can in there. And so it's been awesome being around.
Hey, Lane, Michael Cobble, TV here in Baton Rouge. Just, you talked so much about the evaluations and the need to make some changes. Nowhere was that probably more evident than along the offensive line based on last year's production. What have you guys found in your evaluations of your existing players and your new players that gives you confidence that this offensive line will be what you want it to be?
Well, we haven't got to coach them yet. And so, now on all these evaluations just on paper, okay, about how they look, how they see, and then obviously the evaluation on film of their previous places. So I do feel good about that. But now there's a ton of work to do as a team. There's never more work anywhere than on the offensive line when you bring pieces, because they have to work together way better than any other position. So that will be a big challenge. We've got some great line coaches that we've put together. Being able to bring James Craig back also is really neat for a place that he's done such an amazing job at before. And so that'll be a big key, is how do these guys develop, coming from all over the country to come together to play together.
Hey, Coach, Shough Dixon with On3 Rivals. I've got two questions, so you can be brief if you want to. Back in December, when you got here, you had about 72 hours. Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson thought about just not signing and waiting until February, and then sort of overnight said that they had talked to you and Billy Glasscock, and both changed their mind. Can you shed light on that? And did you know Corey Barber was this top 3 receiver in the country, 5-star, that he's kind of skyrocketed after being committed to you at Ole Miss?
Yeah, I did think about that. Can you imagine having to wait to sign those 2 guys till today? It would have been a long wait. So, that was a big emphasis right away, was the relationship with them, and then also getting them in that first period instead of trying to hold through all of this. Guys, to me that, I get some credit for that when people are like, oh, Lane Kiffin signed the number 1 player in the country. Okay, LSU signed him. So I don't know of any other school, like when you take those 2, for instance, that we don't even have a D-line coach at the time, okay, solidified. And they still sign with LSU. But that's not because of Lane Kiffin. That's not because Frank Wilson. Okay, that's the power of a place that they would decide to sign instead of waiting and having to see everything involved, because they both knew it was LSU. And that's why they were committed before Lane Kiffin got here, or Billy got here. Again, it's a big reason why we're here. When you have a place that can do things like that, that's that powerful in the way that kids think, especially for Louisiana kids, but in general nationally, that's a place you want to align with. And then you want to do all these other things we've discussed, but to have that brand with you makes a big difference with that.
And then speaking, I guess, directly to you, what's been your approach, or did it click over time to say, when a Levitt or a Seton leaves campus and he doesn't commit or sign, that you say that's not good enough, I'm getting on a plane, I'm going to see him? That's not commonplace with coaches around the country.
I don't know. I just know how I do things. There's a good and bad to it. I'm extremely competitive, and I don't really do well with no. So that just makes me more competitive when someone says no. So sometimes that happens in recruiting. They say no. But I think that's my job. That's my job to LSU. and kind of on a different note, when people ask about the social media and why do you do it, everything that I do is for the place of where I coach at, for that school, for those players and those fans. And that makes me not very liked a lot of times by other ones. And so it's the same in that. Like my job, I'm hired here, is to go sign the best players, regardless of whether that means I got to go get on another plane or find a plane and show up somewhere and walk through Knoxville Airport, to find the guy. And that's just kind of how I work. And I like that, because I think that wires in really with Louisiana people, because I think that's how they think. Like, no job's too small, and find a way to go get it done. So I think it's a good match.
Chesson Boucher with NBC 33 here in Baton Rouge. You talked about the roster turnover, but it seemed like for you prioritize keeping Blake Baker and Corey Raymond. What do they bring to the table for your coaching staff?
Yeah, I think consistency. They played well. We'd played in the last 2 years on defense, and to see, even though maybe they weren't the greatest stats ever, but I look at things, I think, in the big picture and say, okay, well, for this year, you knew where the defense was 3 years ago. And so to see what Blake came in and was able to do in that first year of changing that, how dramatically that shifted, that's good coaching. And I thought it was important to keep him. I'd always liked him, always heard good things about him, even talked about hiring him somewhere else we were at, and had conversations with him before. And Corey's, that's just a no-brainer. I mean, when you're able to recruit people to someone, Saban used to say this to me, even if they're older, I'm not saying Corey's older, but even if they're older, a coach, and they coach these certain players along the way, they become really easy to recruit to. And so Corey, you get a really unique combination, because you have somebody you can recruit to that has had great players after great players after great players, but then somebody that also still recruits that way. It's a really good combination. So if I get in front of a corner, I get to say, hey, you get to go play for him, but then he recruits the same way that he did 20 years ago. And it's the reason why I keep signing great players, and they want to come play for him. So that was an easy one.
Hey, Coach, Jacob Vernon from the Vernon Verdict. Can you tell me a little bit about T.J. Daugherty, the player you're getting with him, and the connection you guys had at Ole Miss?
Yeah, I think T.J. was really critical to me, because, when you come in, you want to bring coaches. You want to bring your strength coach, all right? Nick Savage came with us, who does an amazing job with our kids. But in your locker room, too, if you can bring a player that understands your culture and is a alpha and a leader that you can bring with you for the locker room, much like in the NFL, when he gets the Giants' head job and they come from the Patriots and they got a middle linebacker that they coached for a while that understands what they do. They want to bring them with them and sign them so that they're in their locker room. So with TJ, that was really important, to not just get somebody that's been such a good player that have been with for 3 years, have gone through things with, his personal stuff, mine, and just kind of growing together, and then you're able to bring them here, was really great. And I just love his story. When things happen to them, especially in his, and all the guy does is just continue to work, continue to develop as a player. He has a personal situation that's been brought up, especially in this chain, him transferring, he gets re-brought up, and something that he was a victim of, and something that people don't talk about this part, that the person that did this to him is now in jail and is unable to do that to other people after doing it to a number of people. So I love that part of his story, that he just persevered through that, people try to continue to distract him and bring those things up, and he knew that. He knew in the transfer, I can stay and do the comfortable, easy thing and stay here. Nobody's going to re-bring up that story of what happened to me at Clemson. Or I can go do the challenging thing that will make me uncomfortable, that he believed was the best for him, and he did it. I think that says a lot about him.
Hey, Coach, Glenn Gilbo, Tiger Rag Magazine. A lot of this portal class is pretty young. I think about 20 of them are sophomore or younger. How confident are you that you can keep those guys, including the ones who don't play or don't play much at all?
Yeah, I think that's why I say this is all exciting. All these players coming together, and I know there's a lot of excitement around the program about all the players coming in, and the fan base is extremely excited. The thing that I can say that excites you even more is like we really are just getting started, and it will even get better. Like you said, a lot of these players are young that we signed. Okay, this isn't going to be one of these just senior-laden teams, okay, like you see a lot of times. It has to totally be recreated next year. You know, there's a lot of youth on this team, a lot of really good players, a lot of really good juniors coming up. And so I'm not concerned about keeping them because I know what happens when we get into a program and we start coaching them, we start the relationships with them. And if you look at over the years, for the most part, when we were there at the last place, there were really good players and they didn't go in the portal. And almost all of the ones that we wanted to keep stayed with us. So I know that'll be the case here with even more resources to keep them. So I'm excited about that. This year will be great and extremely challenging and so much excitement about it and getting to the season and the home games and everything. But as you look past that, to know that they're young players and that we'll even have our systems in place to evaluate even better and recruit even better with a year together.
Coach, since they hired you, LSU has said they've got 31,000 new season ticket requests. Their sponsorship is way up. Are you sensing this excitement all around you as you go to work, and is it propelling you a little bit as you do your job?
I don't know if it propels me. I do sense it a lot. Where you go, people tell me that stuff, and we've been out a lot around the community in different restaurants, different places and things, and so, which has been awesome here. This is a really, I didn't take the job because I knew a lot about the town, okay? I didn't know much at all. I took the job because of the football program. That's just been a plus to realize, like, the city, you know, that there's so much to do, so many places to go, so many different things. That's been awesome to kind of combine that with our work life here and then have that also. And I've just really felt that through the whole thing and know how much that I feel that. Now, I also remind our guys, okay, that's great, but we have a lot of work to do with this. That excitement and everything is because we're here, because of these players that we signed, okay, but that goes away real quick when the scoreboard doesn't go right. So, but I love that. I do think that it adds to that competitiveness in me that, okay, everyone's so excited, so I would be doing it anyway. I would do the same job no matter what my salary was, no matter what fan base were like that. That's just what I do. But it is exciting to know and to maybe to motivate others to say, okay, hey, all of these people are so excited. Now let's put this product together and now think about the excitement when we have all this and we're winning on top of it.
Lane, Corey Diaz with the Daily Advertiser. I'm not sure if you and your staff could expect to sign the number of players that you did, but going into it, and now that you've come out, do you feel like what the expectation was, you guys exceeded it, you met it? I guess where do you feel you guys landed?
Yeah, I tell our guys, man, it's a production business. Tell our players that, tell our coaches that. And these coaches were paid a lot of money to come here, okay, and they need to produce. And so the first thing that you can do is the signing of the first class. And so if you're paid all this money, all this buildup of the hiring, and, you know, we went and got them, and you had all these places to go, all that stuff, okay, that's great. That first press conference is cool and everything. All right, but where's the production? So again, the final production is obviously the winning on the field. Well, we can't win the game today, but what you can win is the roster and the recruiting. So, yeah, this is what's supposed to happen. If you go get a staff and pay them what you do, you expect a lot. No different than these players are sitting here, and we go pay a player a lot. We have a lot of expectations for them. They need to produce. I told them today. I told the staff yesterday. I told the players today. You guys may have these salaries, okay? Don't sit around and think, okay, well, you have this salary for this coming year because of what you did before, okay? Because you won this before, you were this good player before, or you coached these players in the position last year, okay? This salary is for the work you're supposed to do. You're getting paid each month moving forward. That ain't because of what you did before, because then you can just sit around and you won't be very good because you'll keep saying, well, I earned that. No. You got to go earn this every month. All right. And that's why you're here. And that's the way I try to get them to look at it. Yep. All right, guys. Thanks.